Breaking. The British government has effectively ceased to function. What you are witnessing right now is not a pause, not a delay, and not a strategic recalibration. It is the total, systemic, cardiac arrest of the British state. Just minutes ago, the silence inside number 10 Downing Street shifted from a nervous quiet to a terminal stillness. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has faced the most terrifying realization a leader can ever encounter. The realization that the levers of power have been disconnected from the machinery of government. This is the moment the establishment has feared for decades. It is the moment where the illusion of control finally dissolves, leaving behind a terrified vacuum that is sucking the oxygen out of Westminster. The phones are not ringing, the orders are not being followed, the emails are going unanswered. This isn't a rebellion that screams, it is a rebellion that whispers, and that is what makes it infinitely more dangerous. We are watching the live disintegration of a premiership that has found itself cornered not by the opposition, not by the media, but by the very system it was designed to protect. The atmosphere in Whitehall is apocalyptic. Aides are walking through corridors with the 1,000-yard stare of soldiers who know the war is already lost. The panic isn't frantic, it is heavy, suffocating, and absolute. The Prime Minister is standing in the center of the room, issuing commands to a ghost ship. The crew hasn't mutinied, they have simply vanished into the woodwork, leaving the captain to steer a vessel that is already sinking beneath the waves of history. This is not a drill. This is the end of authority as we know it.
The crisis that has engulfed the Starmer administration is unlike anything we have seen in modern British history because it is invisible to the naked eye, but lethal to the political soul. Usually, a government collapses under the weight of a scandal, a vote, or a riot. But this is something far more sinister. This is system failure in its purest, most destructive form. The bureaucracy, the civil service, the backbench MPs, and the institutional pillars of the state have collectively decided to stop working. They have engaged in a passive resistance so profound that it has paralyzed the executive branch entirely. Think about the magnitude of that. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, a man elected with a historic majority, cannot get his own government to move. He is pushing buttons that no longer connect to anything. He is shouting into a void that refuses to echo back. The legislation is stalled, the policy papers are gathering dust, the daring reforms promised during the election have been swallowed whole by a lethargic, uncooperative beast that Starmer mistakenly thought he could tame. He has been betrayed by the establishment he sought to lead. And here is what makes it worse. The betrayal was calculated. This wasn't an accident. This was a slow-motion strangulation of a leadership that the system deemed incompatible with its own survival. The blob, the permanent state, the institutional inertia, whatever you want to call it, has turned on Keir Starmer with a vengeance. They have isolated him. They have cut his supply lines. They have left him exposed on the political battlefield without armor and without allies. And as the realization hits him, you can almost feel the temperature in the cabinet room drop to freezing.
But while Starmer freezes, another force is heating up. Nigel Farage has been waiting for this exact frequency of silence. He hasn't had to fire a single shot. He hasn't had to organize a single march. All he had to do was wait for the inevitable collapse of a system that was built on contradictions. Farage is now moving through this political wreckage with the precision of a predator who smells blood in the water. He is exploiting the silence, weaponizing the paralysis, and turning the government's inaction into his most powerful campaign ad. Farage isn't just criticizing the Prime Minister, he is explaining the Prime Minister's impotence to the British people. He is pointing at the frozen machinery of Westminster and saying, look, they don't work for you because they don't work at all. It is a narrative of devastating simplicity. While Starmer is trapped in emergency meetings that go nowhere, Farage is live-streaming the funeral of the old political order. He is framing this moment not as a mistake, but as the final, irrefutable proof that the entire Westminster model is obsolete, broken, and illegitimate. The danger for Starmer is that Farage is right. The system is broken. The silence is real. And the British public, who have been patient, who have been hopeful, are now watching with a mix of horror and vindication. They see a prime minister who looks like a prisoner in his own home. They see a government that is more afraid of making a decision than it is of failing the country. The visual is catastrophic. It is the image of a man locking the doors while the house burns down around him, refusing to let the fire brigade in because he's afraid they might ruin the carpet.
This is the point of no return. Once a leader loses the ability to command, they never get it back. Power is an illusion based on the belief that if you speak, people will listen. That belief has been shattered. Starmer speaks, and the system shrugs. The silence that follows his words is the sound of his authority evaporating. And in that silence, the British people are hearing a new sound, the approaching footsteps of a populist reckoning that has been years in the making. The betrayal of the ordinary people in this scenario is profound and heartbreaking. Millions of voters went to the polls believing that a change in management would fix the factory. They were told that the chaos of the previous years was due to bad personalities, not a bad system. They were lied to. And now, as the truth comes out, that the factory itself is condemned, the anger is shifting from disappointment to a cold, hard fury. They see their bills rising. They see their borders porous. They see their public services crumbling. And when they look to number 10 for answers, they get nothing but the static of a government in a coma. Nigel Farage understands this visceral anger better than anyone in the Labour Party ever could. He knows that the public doesn't want complex explanations about parliamentary procedure or bureaucratic hurdles. They want action. They want to know that someone is in charge. By highlighting Starmer's paralysis, Farage is effectively crowning himself the shadow prime minister of the streets. He is the one answering the questions. He is the one acknowledging the crisis. He is the one validating the feelings of a nation that feels abandoned by its elite.
The narrative has shifted from Labour versus Conservative to the people versus the system. Starmer represents the system, slow, arrogant, detached, and failing. Farage represents the people, urgent, loud, frustrated, and demanding justice. It is a mismatch of epic proportions. Starmer is bringing a binder of focus group data to a knife fight. Farage is bringing a sledgehammer, and the wall between the establishment and the electorate is about to come crashing down. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of this collapse. Inside the ministries, the Home Office, the Treasury, the Foreign Office, work has effectively stopped. Civil servants are looking at their screens, waiting for direction that never comes, or worse, actively delaying implementation of policies they dislike. It is a soft coup. It is a rebellion of the paperwork. They are burying the government in red tape, drowning the change agenda in a swamp of compliance and consultation. Starmer, a lawyer by trade, thought he could argue his way through the bureaucracy. He was wrong. You cannot litigate against quicksand. The backbench MPs are the first to smell death. They are essentially political animals, driven by the instinct for survival. When they see a leader who cannot lead, they don't attack him front on. They simply stop defending him. They stop going on television. They stop retweeting the party line. They stop showing up to the Commons. The benches behind Starmer are becoming emptier, not physically, but spiritually. The energy is gone. The loyalty has evaporated. They are already looking past him, wondering who will survive the wreckage when the inevitable crash happens.
And what creates the crash? It's the loss of fear. The moment the system no longer fears the Prime Minister is finished. We are at that moment. The silence in Westminster is the sound of fear leaving the building. The profound disrespect being shown to the office of the Prime Minister is staggering. Leaks are coming out not as trickles, but as floods. Embarrassing details, private conversations, strategic failures, all designed to humiliate and weaken the leadership further. Farage is feasting on these leaks. Every revelation is fuel for his fire. He takes the complexity of systemic failure and boils it down to a single digestible message. They are laughing at you. He tells the voter that the reason nothing works is because the people in charge despise the people they govern. He frames the incompetence as malice. He frames the silence as arrogance. And in the absence of any counter-narrative from Downing Street, because remember, the machine is broken, Farage's story becomes the only story. The media, too, has smelt the blood. The tone of the coverage has shifted from analysis to autopsy. Journalists are no longer asking, what is the government's plan? They are asking, how long does the government have left? The shift in framing is lethal. Once the press decides you are a lame duck, they treat everything you do as a desperate flail. Starmer's attempts to regain control, hasty press conferences, re-announcements of old money, staged photo ops, are being met with cynicism and scorn. The narrative has set like concrete. This is a failed administration. But the most dangerous aspect of this crisis is the financial and international signal it sends. Markets hate uncertainty, but they hate a vacuum even more. The pound is beginning to twitch. Investors are looking at a G7 country that cannot make a decision, and they are pulling back. The stability that Starmer promised, his entire selling point, has been revealed as a fraud. There is no stability in a paralysis. There is no security in a ghost ship. The economic consequences of this political coma are going to be severe, and they will hit the pockets of the very people who can afford it the least. Internationally, Britain looks like a void on the map. Allies are calling and getting voicemail. Enemies are watching and taking notes. A paralyzed Britain is a weak Britain. The geopolitical sharks are circling, knowing that a prime minister fighting for his life against his own civil service has no bandwidth to deal with global threats. The silence in Westminster is echoing in Moscow, in Beijing, and Tehran. They see the weakness, they see the distraction, and they know that now is the time to push. So where does this end? How does a system that has stopped simply start again? The terrifying truth is that it might not. We may be witnessing the final, terminal burnout of the current British political settlement. The two-party system, the civil service neutrality, the parliamentary norms, all of it is buckling under the pressure of a reality it was not designed to handle. Starmer isn't just a failing prime minister, he is the face of an institutional collapse. But the most dangerous aspect of this crisis is the financial and international signal it sends. Markets hate uncertainty, but they hate a vacuum even more. The pound is beginning to twitch. Investors are looking at a G7 country that cannot make a decision, and they are pulling back. The stability that Starmer promised, his entire selling point, has been revealed as a fraud. There is no stability in a paralysis. There is no security in a ghost ship. The economic consequences of this political coma are going to be severe, and they will hit the pockets of the very people who can afford it the least. Internationally, Britain looks like a void on the map. Allies are calling and getting voicemail. Enemies are watching and taking notes. A paralyzed Britain is a weak Britain. The geopolitical sharks are circling, knowing that a prime minister fighting for his life against his own civil service has no bandwidth to deal with global threats. The silence in Westminster is echoing in Moscow, in Beijing, in Tehran. They see the weakness, they see the distraction, and they know that now is the time to push. So where does this end? How does a system that has stopped simply start again? The terrifying truth is that it might not. We may be witnessing the final, terminal burnout of the current British political settlement. The two-party system, the civil service neutrality, the parliamentary norms, all of it is buckling under the pressure of a reality it was not designed to handle. Starmer isn't just a failing prime minister, he is the face of an institutional collapse.
Nigel Farage knows this. That is why he is so calm. He isn't trying to fix the system, he is waiting to inherit the ashes. He is preparing for a post-establishment politics, a politics where the old rules don't apply, where the old parties don't exist, and where the silence of the elite is replaced by the roar of the populace. He is betting everything on the belief that the British people are finally ready to burn the whole thing down and start over. And looking at the silence coming from number 10, who can say he's wrong? The tension is unbearable. It is the feeling of a rubber band being stretched to its absolute limit, right before the snap. The country is holding its breath. The voters are waiting for the other shoe to drop. The silence is not peaceful, it is heavy with the threat of what comes next. It is the silence of a dam about to burst. And when it does burst, the floodwaters will spare no one. The Labour Party, already fracturing, will shatter. The Conservatives, still lost in their own wilderness, will be swept away by the tide of anti-establishment fury. The institutions that refuse to serve Starmer will find themselves dismantled by whoever comes next. This is a suicide pact between the system and the leader, and they are both going to lose. As the hours tick by, the question hangs over London like a storm cloud. Who is actually running the United Kingdom right now? The answer, terrifyingly, is no one. We are drifting. The captain is locked in the brig, the crew has abandoned their posts, and the storm is picking up intensity. Nigel Farage is standing on the shore, pointing at the ship, telling the crowd, "I told you this would happen," and the crowd is nodding.
This is the political point of no return. The bridge is burning behind us. We are walking into a future that is unmapped, unmanaged, and utterly unpredictable. The era of managed decline is over. The era of chaotic collapse has begun. The silence you hear is the sound of history turning a page,
And the chapter it is opening is going to be violent, volatile, and unrecognizable. Keir Starmer wanted to be a transformative prime minister. Well, he has succeeded. He has transformed the British government into a cautionary tale of what happens when a leader ignores the reality of the system he commands. He has proven that without the consent of the machinery, the man at the top is nothing more than a squatter in a suit. The final tragedy is that it didn't have to be this way, but hubris, secrecy, and a fundamental disconnection from the national mood have led us here, to this silence, to this paralysis, to this void. And in the void, the monsters are beginning to stir. The next 24 hours will decide everything. Will the system reboot, or will it crash completely? Will Starmer find a way to break the deadlock, or will he be consumed by it? And will Nigel Farage simply walk through the open door and take the keys to the kingdom? The stakes have never been higher, the danger has never been closer, and the silence has never been louder.
Stay watching, stay listening, because when this silence finally breaks, the sound is going to shatter the windows of Westminster. The end of the old world is here. The only question left is, can we survive the birth of the new one? The clock is ticking. The game is over. The collapse is now.